Particular story. Trade Union Nehawu has welcomed NSFAS Board Chairperson Sizwe Nxasana's resignation. The union called on Higher Education Minister Naledi Pandor to resolve the management issues at the scheme. Now, to unpack this, I'm joined in studio by Nehawu spokesperson Khaya Xaba. Khaya, good afternoon to you, and thanks for joining us. You've always been opposed to Mr. Nxasana's appointment. Give us the reasons why you feel you've always felt that he was not the right choice.
Well, as soon as was appointed in 2015, we were opposed to his appointment because we felt that he was not the right person to administer the fund or to administer the scheme, because he's already a person who is running a similar scheme of his own called Nxasana financial aid scheme for students who are mainly in the missing middle. So for us, that was a conflict of interest, and over time we're proven right, because through his scheme, he tried to swallow in NSFAS, so that his scheme is the one that replaces NSFAS, and that it gets to benefit. So we were proven right.
Was the proof of this that he tried through his student funding scheme to swallow government's NSFAS, and what proof is there?
Well, to start with, for instance, in the Nxasana website, NSFAS is listed as a partner, and they can't partner because they work in the same field, they're doing the same thing, so you can't partner the two. So for some reason, that was never discussed in the board or anywhere else, but for some reason, there's a partnership that is only known by him that is in place between NSFAS and Nxasana.
Did he admit to this?
Well, it's there in the website. There's pictures of some of this staff that was hired in NSFAS, that were hired under dubious circumstances, part of activities that take place at Nxasana. So we've seen a conflict of interest and overlapping of duties between the two. Surely
the department would have raised a red flag about that, a private student funding scheme allegedly wanting to be swallowed up by wanting to swallow a public schemes such as NSFAS. It's such a massive scheme, surely, that that would have raised red flags with the department.
Well, it did not up until as Nehawu, remember, we're the only union organizing at NSFAS. We did eventually raise flags to say to the minister that this should not be happening. In fact, we called for the removal of both the chairperson of the board and the CEO of the scheme. In fact, for the entire board, because we feel that all of them are complicit, and they were well aware of what was happening, and nothing was done to stop that or to raise it with the minister.
You also claim as Nehawu that Mr. Nxasana had an uncomfortably close relationship with the current CEO of NSFAS, and that's Mr. Stephen Zwane. Why do you feel that way?
Well, we feel that even before Mr. Zwane was hired into NSFAS, already they were working in other education schemes and projects. Of course, they have one called Future Nation Schools, where it's a high school. So, of course, when those students graduate, then they would then benefit from Nxasana. So we did raise that their relationship was not sitting well with us. Thus, we called for both of them to be removed. And we did raise that with the minister, and hopefully now that the Nxasana is gone, the CEO will also follow.
Khaya, Mr. Nxasana he comes with lots of, he has a huge reputation to uphold. He is a highly reputable business leader. What were your expectations of him when he occupied or when he was appointed to this position in 2015? And has he met those expectations?
Look, the person that we wanted at that position, or the person that will still want to take over from here on, is someone who cares about the education of students from poor background, students from working class families. So we wanted someone who prioritized the administering of grants to students, which is something which he did not do. Remember, as we speak now, there's a backlog of 2016, 2017, 2018. That's the minister said we must halt the applications for 2018 because there's still that backlog. So what he was hired to do, he did not do. we understand his CV, all the positions he've held before in ABSA and all of that, but that doesn't assist the students who want to access higher education. It's important that NSFAS does that and that it opens the doors of higher education, because as a country it's important that we invest in youth who are future leaders, and that should be done through education, which he failed dismally to do. So basically what he did at NSFAS for the past 3 years was to fail students from working class background.
The understanding, Mr. Xaba, is that Mr. Nxasana was not even paid for this particular appointment or for this position from the time that he was appointed. He's never received a single paycheck. That's my understanding. You can correct me if I'm wrong. So why would he want to come and scupper NSFAS for his own personal ends?
Well, even if it's true that he was not paid or he was not remunerated for holding this position, but it means then he was going to benefit in other ways, and that include benefiting through Nxasana, because as far as I know, he was going to work together with ABSA, which is his former employee, and Standard Bank in order to fund students who would want to apply through Nxasana. So that's still getting something financial. It's a financial gain for him, whether he was paid or not. But the fact of the matter is, it's neither here nor there whether he was paid or not. The most important thing here, I think, at the bottom line is the students who want to access higher education. And if that doesn't happen, then it means the scheme is failing in its core function.
Apart from his close relationship with the CEO of NSFAS, Mr. Stephen Zwane, what is your gripe with Mr. Stephen Zwane, apart from the issue that you say they had an uncomfortably close relationship?
Well, apart from that is the fact that there's a backlog now as we speak. Student can't apply for 2018. As soon as he entered, he was supposed to, one, find a secure system that was going to ensure that grants are paid timelessly, and secondly, he was meant also to fundraise for the scheme. And for the past 3 years, he has never even fundraised even 1 cent for the scheme. Yet his dealings with Nxasana and the CEO are continuing unabated. So for us, that's a failure of working class students.
How is the ministry reacting to Mr. Nxasana's resignation?
Well, we're not sure about that, and we can't speak on behalf of the ministry. But what we say is it's important now that we find someone with integrity, someone who cares about the education of our youth, who will take the scheme and take it to greater heights and ensure that it does what it's meant to be doing. And as Nehawu, especially the workers who are organizing at the scheme, we're more than ready to ensure that work gets done and that we benefit all the students in South Africa.
Minister Pandor recently took up the position that she currently occupies, which is that of higher education. Are you disappointed with how the former minister, or should we say the recent minister in that post, Dr. Blade Nzimande, conducted his work in relation to NSFAS? Are you impressed with his record? Well, this happened under his watch, by the way.
Well, we openly disagreed with the appointment of Nxasana. We are against it from the start. So, of course, in that regard, we would say that he took a very bad decision. But for everything else, we think that he was an exceptional minister for higher education. So, but our only problem would be the appointment of Nxasana.
All right, Mr. Xaba, I'm going to ask you to hold the thought there for the moment. On the line, we have Lunga Ngangalele, who speaks for the Minister of Higher Education and Training, Naledi Pandor. Mr. Ngangalele, good afternoon to you. What is the department's reaction to Mr. Nxasana's resignation?
Thank you, Polly, and good afternoon to the viewers. Of course, the Minister of Higher Education and Training, Minister Naledi Pandor, has sadly accepted Mr. Nxasana's resignation. Minister had a meeting with Mr. Nxasana on Wednesday. And of course, on top of that, the minister has actually gratefully sort of thanked Mr. Nxasana for the sterling contribution he has done to NSFAS in terms of leading it, and really hoped that Mr. Nxasana would go on to have a prosperous sort of a future.
Mr. Nxasana, you using words like sadly and in a way reluctantly, if I'm hearing you correctly, that the minister accepted the resignation of Mr. Nxasana. Nehawu, on the other hand, holds a different view that it's actually good riddance because he never had the interests of poor students in the first place. How are you reacting to that?
Look, I think it won't be the view that the minister is holding just based on the sort of interaction that the minister has had with Mr. Nxasana from the time she started here in the Department of Higher Education and Training. Of course, the minister has had a number of meetings with Mr. Nxasana and found him really willing to assist in terms of making sure that NSFAS operates smoothly, and so it is on those bases that the minister is actually really thanking Mr. Nxasana for the contribution that he has made.
Mr. Nxasana, what were the reasons forwarded by Mr. Nxasana for deciding to tender his resignation now?
From the statement Mr. Nxasana issued, of course, he mentions the fact that as the chair of the board, he didn't think that he would be spending so much time in terms of looking at on the NSFAS issues, and so he feels that he has done his role, and now he wants to move on. That's what he has said, but I'm unable to really say more in terms of what are the reasons.
Please respond to these allegations being leveled against Mr. Nxasana by the Union Nehawu. They are saying here that he has a private student scheme called Xaba Student Funding Program, which he intended to swallow NSFAS. Did you get those allegations from Nehawu, and have you ever investigated that as a ministry?
No, we haven't. As I've said, Dolly, our interaction with Mr. Nxasana, or I must say Minister Pandor's interaction with Mr. Nxasana, it has been in terms of his role as the chair of the board. So Minister would write to Mr. Nxasana in terms of what the NSFAS is supposed to do. And in terms of the other dealings that Mr. Nxasana might be having, it's not something that we have looked into as far as I'm aware. Just Minister was concerned about making sure that every eligible student who is supposed to be getting money from NSFAS gets them. And the Minister got to a point where she was really concerned that we have come to this time of the year still having some of the students who have not yet received their monies, and hence Minister has been just having regular interactions with the board via or through Mr. Nxasana.
Just a final allegation, Mr. Nxasana, that I'd like you to respond to, that's being leveled by Nehawu against Mr. Nxasana and indeed the CEO of the NSFAS, and that's Mr. Stephen Zwane. Nehawu alleging here that they had an uncomfortably close relationship, given that they are running foundations that seek to have student funding schemes, and which is why, therefore, it links back to the very beginning, or the very first allegation, that Mr. Nxasana's private student funding scheme intended to swallow NSFAS.
So, as you are saying, it's allegations, and I do not want to begin to involve myself on the allegations, because if really there is proof and then that was brought to the minister, I'm definitely sure that the minister would have followed that up. So far, all I can just confirm with you is what I know in terms of the contribution that Mr. Nxasana made to NSFAS, and of course through the interaction he had with the minister. And this is why Minister is really thinking that Mr. Nxasana played a significant role in terms of getting us to where we are having a huge number of students who are deserving of NSFAS funding, getting it. But of course, it's still a concern that we still have some students that have not received their monies from 2017 and 2018. That is where we are. Minister this afternoon is meeting the board to make sure that the work that has been that the work that needs to be done continues to be done, so that come 2019 all students get their monies on time, and that we do not find ourselves in a situation where we come around this time of the year 2019, we still have students that haven't gotten their money. That is the work that Minister is focused on at the moment.
Does Minister Pandor intend replacing Mr. Nxasana with immediate effect, or is that going to be left unfilled for now, that position of the board of NSFAS chairperson? And is the CEO's position safe at the moment? Are you still happy with Mr. Stephen Zwane?
Yes, Mr. Stephen Zwane remains the CEO of the NSFAS, as well as I've said, that Minister Pandor is meeting the board today to chart a way forward. And if any of or whatever comes out of that, I'm sure we would let you know if there is an acting chairperson or a permanent chairperson that will come out of this meeting. But Minister Pandor is meeting the board today to make sure that the work of making sure that the students receive their monies happens within the time that she's expecting.
All right. Thank you very much for your time, Lunga Ngangalele, speaking for the Department of Higher Education and Training. And of course, in studio here was Khaya Xaba. He is representing the trade union Nehawu, which is happy with the resignation of the now former board chairperson of NSFAS, Mr. Sizwe Nxasana. Thank you very much, sir, for your time.